couple other things kind of in addition to the video that Doug had. He has shown you where you can find your rulers under View, Rulers, Show Rulers. I also wanted to point out this little symbol here in the R. That's a keyboard command. That symbol right there, that thing that looks kind of like a clover leaf, is actually the command key on the computer, or if it was a Windows machine, it would probably be the control key. So Command R will toggle your rulers on and off, which is really handy to have. Another thing I wanted to show you, and let's go ahead and pull up the rulers with that, is that you can use the 0 point, actually pull it out and use it if you wanted to have anything that's out there on your work area as the 0 point, and then you can measure things from that thing. That can be really handy. Of course, if you want to put the 0 point back to default, you can just go ahead and drag it there, or even simpler, just double click up here in this spot and you've got your 0 point back to where you want it to be. I want to show you too a way that I would maybe think about this. Another simple keyboard command, by the way, is Command O, which will be fit in window. Command minus will zoom out, or Command Shift plus will zoom in. So those are a couple other really handy keyboard commands to know, as well as Command S, which is Command Save. You'll want to save quite a bit. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead and give it a name as Test 1, and we'll put it on in my ARS 103 class, and I will save that. It will come in, and you'll notice this as a Adobe Illustrator file and a .ai file. This is important because we're going to come back in just a second and see how we can change that, but we'll save it. And then when we get that, we have the options to save as the version of the Illustrator file. This is important too, because sometimes you'll be working on a machine that doesn't have the latest version of Illustrator. So you may need to save down to an earlier version of Illustrator in order to be able to open this file on that machine. This is where you would do that. We'll go ahead and say OK here. For my class, I want you to work in Illustrator and work as an Illustrator file, but before you upload it to Canvas, I want you to go ahead and do a save as, and then save as a PDF file. You'll find that right here under Format. You'll notice that this changes to .pdf. The reason for that is that Canvas will show a PDF a lot better than it shows an Illustrator file. I don't know what the reason for that is, but just so that when we're looking at the work, it's easier if it's a PDF. You can still keep the preserved Illustrator editing capabilities on, which will make it easier for you to open that PDF file back in Illustrator, which is fine. So just say save PDF. Now that's a PDF. As far as the guides go, Doug showed you how to pull them down or over. We want to have 6 guides going across here. As long as that guide is active, which it is, and I'll go ahead, I'm going to figure out where I want to put it. I think Doug gave you some numbers, but the way I would approach this is I'd figure I have 17 inches across, and I'm going to divide it by, I want 6 guides, so I'm going to divide it by 7, because I'm looking at the spaces, not where the guides are, but dividing into the spaces here. So that comes out to 2.3 basically. So I'm going to take this guide, make sure it's active, and then go to, on my x-axis, 2.43. Hit OK, and there it is. Now I can go and try to figure out what the next position would be on that, but I already have figured that this is at 2.43, so I'll show you a really good way to go about this. I, I have it selected. I'm going to go up into Object, Transform, and Move. I know I want to move it 2.43 again, right? We'll preview that and see that it moves 2.43, but let's do as a copy. Voila. Now we've got another one that has moved that same distance. And here's a cool thing, and I use this quite a bit. If you go up under Object, Transform, and Transform again, it will duplicate that last action, which is making a copy of that guide and moving it 2.43 inches over. So I think of Command D, this keyboard command, as Command Duplicate, and you'll notice it did that. So I'll do Command D, Command D, Command D. Now I have these spaces that are equidistant here, equally spaced. I'm going to go ahead and do that on my y-axis also. So let's go to the calculator. That's 11 here divided by 5 because I want to have 5 spaces there, and that comes out to 2.2. So let's pull one down. We'll make sure that it is at 2.2 on the y-axis here, and do the same thing. We'll go to Transform, Move, 0 horizontally, but 2.2 on the y-axis, right? Copy it, and then Command D, Command D. Now these are all equally spaced here. That's really great and handy too. And we could certainly lock our guides now, but I'll show you another thing that I really like to do. I like to put my guides onto a layer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename this layer Guides. You get automatically a layer when you create a new document, right? And so now this one is my guide layer, and I can lock it. Now I can't move any of that stuff, and I can hide them really easily if I need to see my workspace without the guides. Now I need a layer to put my ornaments on. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the pull down menu here, and you can't see that, but it comes out as a new layer from that pull down menu. And I'll give it a name of ornaments. And the thing that you need to know about this is this information here, this color, has nothing to do with any of the colors of the things on the layer. It's just a highlight color that allows me to keep track of what layer things are on when I select them. You'll notice that my guide layer has blue highlight to it. We want it to show, that corresponds to the eye, so does the preview, and we want it to not be locked right now. We can control that right here as well. The print is really handy for when you're going to put photos onto a layer and use them as reference, but you don't want them to print. You can have that layer with the photo on it not print. And we'll use dim images when we do that kind of thing a little bit later. But for right now, those three are the things that you'd probably want to have selected. Say, okay, now I have an ornament layer. We can also move layers around just by clicking on them and dragging them. So if you want the guide layer to be over the ornament layer, it's easy to do like that. You can also add a layer by clicking on the little plus button here. The thing is that you don't automatically get all those layer parameters. But if you want to double click on it, then you get that. If you don't want a layer, you can go ahead and click on the trash can and it goes away. Now I'm going to do one more thing here with guides. I'm going to go ahead and hide my ornaments layer and unlock my guides layer, and now I need to click on the guides layer in order to do work on that layer. I'm going to drag out a circle here, and if I hold down the Option key and the Shift key, then I will draw my circle from the center, which is really handy to do, right? if I go to my properties, I can see that I kind of missed hitting that right where I wanted it. So I'll go ahead and put 2.43 here, 2.43 on that, and 2.2 on this, and then I'll know that it's exactly in that spot. So I've got this circle. I don't have a fill on it. Let's go ahead and put a stroke color on it so that we can see it, right? There it is. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I just did before. I'll move it as a copy and duplicate that action. And then I'm going to select those same things. Now, if I just click and drag, I'm also going to get my guides. So let's do this. Let's click on it, and I'll go to select, same, stroke color. Now only those things are selected. And I can transform those now. Let's go to 2.43 and 0, copy, Command D, 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 D. Now, why did I do this? Well, I'll show you. I'm going to go again and select same stroke color. That's one way to do it. There are others, obviously. And I'm going to go to View, Guides, Make Guides. So now all those circles that I drew are actually just non-printing guides. It gives me kind of an idea where I want to put my ornaments.